The FNaF timeline is so vast and complex, it has become a meme.
Jesse, have you solved the Five Nights at Freddy's lore?
Actually, Mr. White, I do believe I have. William Afton and Henry opened in 1967 the family-friendly Fazbear's Family was once again without a job. The problem that is, in this attempt, they recognized Dave as originally...
You can twist it however you want, but factually there is no singular timeline covering all of the FNaF universe. It's more like a multiverse, with separate continuities and alternate timelines, all defined within one canon. All rather complicated though, isn't it? Many have tried, and failed, to simplify FNaF's lore. The truth is, there is no single coherent narrative. By examining the lore in general, however, a story that is mostly coherent but still mysterious can be pieced together across the original FNaF games. And that's why I'm here. Greetings and welcome to Continuity Error. My name is Matt and you are watching Track and Trace, the series where I explore the original FNaF games chronicles from a single perspective, character by character, one episode at a time. Today is going to be a very unique episode, delving into more niche and original theories, and it's what you've chosen too. See, on the Discord server, I polled you all about which FNaF 2 character I should cover next. By popular demand, we are tracking and tracing the Mangle today. As it turns out though, Mangle is a surprisingly complicated one to cover because there isn't much of a straightforward story to tell about them. Mangle's origins are shrouded in mystery and may be much more complex than they seem. They have a brief, somewhat cut and dry narrative role in FNaF 2, but their eventual end, while being less complex, is equally mysterious as its origins, so only a little bit of this video is really going to be that linear and chronological storytelling style that I normally use for this series, like what I did with the Freddy episode. Most of this video is going to be an exploration of theories regarding Mangle's origins, speculating on possibilities rather than settling on one likely story. Please also note that, like many FNaF animatronics, while Mangle has technically made numerous appearances since its inception in FNaF 2, most of these can be ignored for this video. Today I'm trying to track and trace the history of the original Mangle from Five Nights at Freddy's 2, not the Mangle from Help Wanted, since according to the game's own logic that's a virtual video game character of the character in universe, nor the Mangle from Special Delivery, since according to the game's own logic that's just a mass-produced plastic replica character of the video game character of the real animatronic in universe, and definitely not whatever the f this is supposed to be, because according to that game, logic belongs out the window. Obviously, we're also looking past book iterations of Mangle and Phantom Mangle, which is just a hallucination created by Springtrap, Nightmare Mangle, because according to a throwaway Steam comment made by Scott Cawthon 8 years ago, it's not canon, which is obviously the infallible word of God and cannot be questioned. As always, remember that these are theories, not facts. The story is unconfirmed at best and flat out debunked at worst, if information created after the release of this video makes that happen. But in any case, stay open-minded, theorists. Let's begin. Why is Mangle mangled? What made them this way? According to Phone Guy,
they tried to remake Foxy, you know? They thought the first one was too scary, so they redesigned them to be more kid-friendly and put them in Kids Cove to keep the toddlers entertained, you know? But kids these days just can't keep their hands to themselves. The staff literally had to put Foxy back together at the end of every shift. Eventually they just stopped trying and left him as some kind of take-apart, put-back-together attraction. Now he's just a mess of parts. I think the employees refer to him as just the Mangle.
So, you're telling me that children, toddlers, were able to tear apart a metal animatronic to the point of this? And no one else, not a single other animatronic, not the other toys, was given the same treatment? Or that for some reason Toy Foxy was just more susceptible to damage? Nah. Let me just contextualize this. Phone Guy is notorious for covering Fazbear Entertainment's ass with explanations that don't make sense. In the previous game, the very first game, on the very first night, he tells us that the animatronics think we're an endoskeleton that needs to be put into a costume, which is why they stuff us in the suits. But look at one of the first animatronics to move during that phone call.
If they happen to see you after hours, probably won't recognize you as a person. They'll most likely see you as a metal endoskeleton without its costume on. Now, since that's against the rules here at Freddy Fazbear's Pizza, they'll probably try to forcefully stuff you inside a Freddy Fazbear suit.
If what Phone Guy was saying was true, Bonnie would put a costume on that endoskeleton as soon as he saw it. So that was a lie. And this thing about toddlers breaking Mangle, that too is a lie. So what's the real reason? Well, it seems to me that Phone Guy isn't lying to be unhelpful. He, just like all of Fazbear Entertainment, is in denial that ghosts are real and haunt their animatronics, and are frantically scrabbling for any kind of logical explanation for their strange behavior, or worse, they do know, and they just pretend otherwise to keep business going because no one would believe them. Maybe Phone Guy is alone in believing that the animatronics are haunted. That's not today's topic though. If they are just one of the toy animatronics built for the grand reopening of 87, same as the others, why is the Mangle mangled? Why aren't they all mangled? There is no confirmed answer, but there is a potential explanation. If you're willing to think about it, hear me out. Mangle is the dog. In Freddy Fazbear's Pizzeria Simulator's tycoon minigame, Fruity Maze, we are shown one of the missing children incident victims lured by William Afton in the Spring Bonnie costume. Susie, who goes on to possess Chica, recently lost her pet dog in a car accident and is led by Purple Guy under the false pretense of the dog still being alive. In Ultimate Custom Night, the game full to the brim with throwaway details that confirm and debunk numerous theories, during one of the bizarre intermissions, we get this piece of dialogue.
私は自分自身を誰かここから下ろしてくれ氷の上のブリトーの多くのものを持っていたそれは本当だがそれは彼が
Now one might think, well, that dialogue is just part of some bizarre allegorical metaphor for Afton Emily family shenanigans, and you'd be right. But isn't it a standout detail that Mangle is being linked to a dog when, at the time, the only other dog in the franchise was one that died in the previous game in a series where every death leads to a haunting. A dog that died in a Lawkeeper Certificate minigame. If this detail doesn't mean something, then why was it added in the first place? Sure, there's no hard evidence. It's a pretty flimsy theory reliant on two tiny details that may each mean nothing. But let's assume for a moment that somehow this dog from Fruity Maze does indeed haunt Mangle. Suddenly, a lot of details align. Mangle is mangled because the dog walked on 4 feet when it was alive and struggles to move on 2 legs. Toy Foxy, with the strength of metal motors and the will of a likely now feral animal ghost, broke itself because its body is humanoid but the spirit is a dog. Mangle moves and saved them because they were already haunted by the dog before the DCI killings. Therefore, we can attribute the 5th dead child from Save Them to haunting JJ, tying up another loose end from FNaF 2. Mangle was the perpetrator of the bite of 87 because, well, biting is what dogs do. They are natural predators with sharp canines to match. Oh, and look at Mangle's design. Foxes aren't exactly far removed from dogs. This theory ties up several loose ends. However, for this theory to truly work, especially without a foundation in hard evidence, it needs to solve 2 new problems. 1, how did the dog go from roadkill to actually haunting the Mangle endoskeleton specifically? And 2, if Mangle has been around since before Susie was abducted during the MCI, then where has it been all these years? For the first question, simply put, we don't know. Mangle has appeared all over the franchise, but this dog is exclusive to Fruity Maze. If Mangle is haunted by the dog, then we must assume that it was run over just outside Freddy's or Fredbear's, close enough for its spirit to physically go inside the building and into an animatronic body. From there, well, maybe Charlotte, the puppet, gave it life in the Mangle endoskeleton and guided them into a body. Maybe it was run over by William Afton himself in his iconic purple car, and in a panicked, cowardly frenzy or a scheming, sinister move, Afton dumped the dog's corpse into the same dark alleyway he did with Charlotte's body, or some other place close enough to haunt a body, but hidden enough never to be found. If this was a premeditated crime, then it would be logical. Afton at this point in time has only succeeded in bringing a soul to life once, so his scientific mind would naturally test on animals before humans, as twisted as this whole thing is. Still, how would he get away with this without being seen? The dog was Susie's. Would it have not been with Susie and her parents and or guardians? Did it get lost on a dark night? Perhaps it happened in broad daylight and was framed as an accident, whether it was true or not, so the body was disposed of in proper fashion. Perhaps a situation similar to a scene from Fazbear Fright's Friendly Face story happened. If you know, you know. Perhaps there is simply an untold story here. Or perhaps it's just too much of a stretch. There are a lot of assumptions required for this theory, even if they do make perfect sense and aren't conflicting with other pieces of evidence. That's all for the dog though. Now it's Mangle's turn. To tackle the question of where Mangle was all those years before FNaF 2, we'll have to delve into the games earlier in the timeline. FNaF 4 and sister location. Oh boy. I'll be honest, there is a lot of messy lore that I simply don't have time and room to explain fully here, so there are some things you're just gonna have to take as read in terms of theories. I'll put them all on screen now. If these ideas don't make sense to you and I haven't released episode 3 yet, ask about it in the comments. I will use next episode to explore a character that will shed light on this part of the timeline. Starting off with the elephant in the room, Funtime Foxy. Now, when I say that name, you're probably thinking of the sister location character, an animatronic that, despite visual similarities, is entirely separate from Mangle, but a very similar character by the same name and almost the same design appeared before sister location was even teased in FNaF World. Now, I don't doubt that FNaF World isn't canon, but this game was made at a turning point in the FNaF lore. Scott has gone on record saying that he wasn't in the most stable frame of mind when he made the game and did actually try and tie it into the lore.
And in hindsight, what I should have done is, you know, I should have used that for a troll game, or I should have, you know, made something like, you know, Foxy Fighters. You know, I should have just done something that was obviously for fun and not tried to somehow tie it in to a canon game, you know, and that's obvious to me now, but like I'm saying, you know, like I was saying, I wasn't thinking completely rationally at the time.
And given Funtime Foxy's loading screen quote, I think the implication here that this is supposed to be the original toy version of Funtime Foxy, Mangle, when it was first built, before Hasbro Entertainment gave up on repairing it over and over because it wasn't meant to last. Again, given the time frame, I would presume that Scott Cawthon just hadn't ironed out the idea of Funtime Foxy in sister location yet. The idea for sister location didn't exist yet at the time. So he used the name here for Mangle, although it may not be canon since outside of this game, the name Funtime Foxy has only ever been attributed to our faceplate wearing sister location Fox and never the animatronic that became Mangle. So for the sake of avoiding confusion, I will now refer to Mangle pre-FNaF 2 as Toy Foxy and the sister location version Funtime Foxy. So, was the Hasbro Entertainment Toy Foxy simply a ripoff of Funtime Foxy? Maybe. But depending on how we interpret the next clue, it could be the other way around. We know that one of the two must have existed before sister location because of FNaF 4, where in Elizabeth Afton's bedroom we have a broken pink fox. It's hard to tell whether it's a toy or an animatronic, but this is clearly the Mangle. Funtime Foxy, meanwhile, was an animatronic manufactured for Circus Baby's Pizza World and later Circus Baby's Entertainment and Rental by Afton Robotics. It did exist by 1983, so this pink fox in the bedroom may simply be a merchandise of that character, but alternatively, what if this is the Mangle, the animatronic? What if William Afton gave it to Elizabeth to play with or test with, but it broke down? Regardless of the exact reason why it's here in this bedroom in the Afton house, if this is the Mangle, then it stands to reason that Toy Foxy must have been created during the era of Fredbears and the original Freddy's, and must have been some kind of unused or prototype animatronic. We still never found out why Foxy was out of order in the very first game. Perhaps Foxy already had a reputation before the MCI that inclined Hasbro Entertainment to replace him with a safer, more kid-friendly version. Let's also not forget that, at this time, Henry Emily and William Afton still co-owned Hasbro Entertainment. We know from the novels that Afton was more of a businessman though, whereas Henry handled engineering and actually built the animatronics, including, despite being a property of Afton's sister company, Funtime Foxy and the sister location robots. Here's what he had to say about it in Pizzeria Simulator.
As if what he had already done wasn't enough. He found a new way to desecrate, to humiliate, to destroy. Small souls trapped in prisons of my making, now set to new purpose, and used in ways I never thought imaginable. But they will never find rest now, not like this. I have to call them all back, all of them, together in one place.
With all of this in mind, would it really be such a stretch to suggest that sometime before the MCI, Henry helped William design and build an animatronic, perhaps even teaching William how to engineer animatronics for himself? Could that mean that the Mangle isn't so mangled because it's haunted by a dog, but just because of its amateur design flaws from William's inexperienced hands? This means that Mangle ends up haunted by a DCI victim though, and that unravels the loose end of JJ. What's the deal with JJ? I mean, who knows? There's like no information on that character. Some people still think it's just a hallucination, and at this point, you know, maybe they're right. Still, not only would this theory explain Mangle's existence so early in the timeline, a prototype experimental concept built by William in the parts and service of the original Freddy's, perhaps for his sister location, perhaps for learning more skills, perhaps for experimenting with possession without Henry's knowledge, this would explain Balloon Boy too. Balloon Boy is an underrated character that I may dedicate a whole video to. He was one of the options on the poll for this video, but essentially what I want to say in this video is that FNAF 4's Nightmare BB is canon, meaning that Balloon Boy did exist back in 1983. A short, small, simple animatronic taking the form of a child, as if built specifically as an easy experiment on how a spirit would react to haunting a body similar to the one it had in life. This is definitely a William Afton creation. So with all of that information out of the way, because, wow, that was a lot, here's a summary of everything so far. Mangle was Toy Foxy, a plastic pink and white version of Foxy originally built before the missing children's incident. With the help of Henry Emily, William Afton created this animatronic as an experiment. Perhaps he was already planning on owning his own location thanks to the recent expansion of Fazbear Entertainment, or perhaps he intended to use it for sinister purposes. Either way, one day he runs over a stray dog, killing it. Maybe it was planned, maybe it truly was an accident, maybe it happened in broad daylight, or perhaps Afton seized this opportunity in the darkness of night and dumped the body in the same back alley he dropped Charlotte Emily's corpse. Regardless, the spirit of the dog ends up at Freddy's, guided by the puppet haunted by Charlotte into a body, a spare endoskeleton with a pink costume in the parts and service room. Thus, the Mangle is born. Time passes. Afton comes back to take note of his work's results, but little happens to the Mangle. Given how it kept destroying itself and malfunctioned, it was likely deemed unfit to put on stage. William, possibly forgetting about it, perhaps not even aware of how it was haunted, leaves Mangle stored away, even as Freddy Fazbear's Pizza eventually closes. The Mangle rots away in the abandoned Freddy's for a long time before being discovered and taken away by the newly reopened and rebranded Fazbear Entertainment to the new 1987 Freddy Fazbear's Pizza. Enter Five Nights at Freddy's 2. So there is my theory for Mangle's origins. Yes, we could assume alternatively that Mangle was simply inspired by Funtime Foxy and built by new engineers as one of the toys in FNAF 2 in 1987, but while my theory is reliant on heavy assumptions and speculation, I do believe elements of it may be true. It would seem to me that Cawthon originally intended Mangle to simply be one of the toys, but as time went on, retconned it into a much more unique and complex character. Is this theory connected enough to make you believe it, or are the sheer quantity of assumptions just too much to hold up? While I'm still doubtful of how Mangle could have been haunted by the dog exactly, I think there is still strong evidence to suggest its existence before FNAF 2 either way. Regardless of what you believe, regardless of what Mangle's origins are exactly, it's finally time to finish this story. So let's delve back into the more concrete theories and my narrative style scripting. Do note that I have taken some creative liberties to fill in gaps of the story where somehow no hard evidence did. But now it's time to answer, where was the Mangle? The year is 1987. Freddy Fazbear's Pizza has reopened, rebranded, and despite its rocky history, has achieved some success. However, the company has spent a small fortune on a group of new animatronics and blown their budget on a bigger and better and more secure building, with more rooms and facilities for their business. The new toy edition of Foxy sits in Kids Cove, once again broken up. Did the toddlers do this? Look at this mess, this Mangle. Kids these days can't keep their hands to themselves. The day shifts quickly become a cycle. The staff have to fix Toy Foxy at the end of each shift. It breaks down into a mangled mess of parts. Staff fix Foxy at the end of the day. It breaks down into a Mangle. Staff fix Foxy. It breaks down again. Staff fix it. Breaks yet again. Break, fix, break. Mangle. Ultimately, they decide to turn Foxy into a take apart and put back together attraction, a fun way to teach kids about robotics and what makes Freddy so special. The Mangle refuses to be fixed, so it's left the way it is, a tangled and broken mess of parts, wires and metal components barely covered by bright colourful plastic pieces. Time passes, business keeps up. Maybe Freddy's had moved on from its dark past? Unfortunately, that sentiment was short-lived. It's unclear how much the Mangle saw. Both Puppet and Freddy passed Kids Cove, but one night, the night guard's last shift before he switched to the day shift, a new set of innocent souls were beginning to haunt Freddy's once more. 5 children, their bodies scattered across the building in pools of their own blood, soaking the building with agony. This would become known as the Dead Children's Incident. History was repeating itself, but this time the killer wasn't trying to hide his handiwork. In a matter of days, Freddy Fazbear's Pizza would shut down once again. And so Mangle, like the others, would spend the nights hunting the night guard, not seeing that someone else had taken the night shift and that their killer would be gone in half a week. Mangle might have been haunted by one of his victims, or been seeking vengeance on behalf of Susie and the other dead children, or simply been following its code to attack faces listed on its now tampered criminal database records. Whichever the case, Mangle would crawl on the ceilings to reach the only adult in the building at night. And even during the daytime, as the investigation began and the location was locked down, it would often stare almost aggressively towards adults. With the police now all over Freddy's and the previous day shift guard gone, the location shut down. The second night guard, Jeremy Fitzgerald, who had survived 6 nights of terror by Mangle and the others, had one more shift, a day shift. One last birthday party at Freddy's. Mangle recognized him immediately. The night guard, the one that they had been trying to catch. On the morning of Saturday, 14th of November 1987, an anxious Jeremy Fitzgerald walked into Freddy Fazbear's Pizza for the last time. No one else had seen what the animatronics were capable of in the night. None of the few employees, customers, and children still here had seen them as monsters when they were free to roam the building. No one could understand his fear. Yet he followed his orders and stayed close to them. This would be his final shift at Freddy's. It was almost at noon in Kids Cove. A few children were playing with Mangle when he walked in to check on the room. Jeremy had been so focused on keeping an eye on the main trio in the dining hall that he had almost forgotten to check back here. But his shift was almost over. In less than an hour, he would be free. Mangle immediately turned and locked eyes with the adult in the room. It stared angrily at Jeremy, who despite his fear stepped closer. Was he talking to the kids in the room? Trying to warn them about how dangerous Mangle was? The animatronic barely heard him as it slowly but surely stood up and took steps towards the man who had now stopped, eyeing the animatronic the whole time. This was him. This was who they had been looking for. The one responsible for all their suffering. Jeremy saw what Mangle was doing, but too late. Even if he had, could he have moved fast enough to dodge the danger in front of him? Like a predator, a wild animal, Mangle suddenly pounced. Well over 100 kilograms of metal jumped at Jeremy, pushing him to the ground and sunk its teeth into his face. He screamed. Blood sprayed on the walls. The children, in paralyzed shock at the gory scene, began to wail. Mangle sat there, spasming and twitching, satisfied with its work. Other employees and parents came rushing in, covering their children's eyes, and in a matter of minutes the entire building was cleared out. Police arrived and the party was cancelled. Finally, Freddy Fazbear's grand reopening had closed. But what happened to the animatronics? A newspaper published the previous day declared in an article that Freddy's new line of animatronics would be scrapped due to malfunctions. So, was that it for Mangle? Was it simply brought out, loaded onto a truck, taken to a disposal plant, and melted down for scrap metal? Because if that's the case, how did it end up here? Now we return to the more speculative part of the video. I'm sure I don't need to explain why Mangle is the perpetrator of the bite of 87 and why Jeremy is the victim. The order of events is also pretty obvious from the phone calls, the paychecks, and the newspaper clues. It's all in FNaF 2. But it is odd that the toys were set to be scrapped before the bite of 87. Moving on, there is a massive time jump between FNaF 2 and 3, and virtually no hints whatsoever on how Mangle, and all of the other toys, ended up in this box. There are some potential answers to this mystery, but nothing can be confirmed. So what have I got? My first theory is that these simply aren't real. As Phone Dude says, some of the props could just be
crappy cosplay.
And it's far too convenient that every toy somehow ended up in the same place. Also, look at how clean they are. There's no way they are still in pristine condition after all this time, right? Of course, maybe Cawthon just didn't bother to edit the models in any way, and there is the possibility that at least some of them are real, so let's take a look at an alternative. What if this is the actual mask of Mangle? Well, given that the toys were scrapped, it would be logical to assume that their metal endoskeletons were melted down, with the heat releasing any remnant inside of them, freeing the spirits of the DCI, and possibly a dog. But wouldn't the plastic costume parts be disposed of separately? You wouldn't melt down plastic with metal, they'd mix together, so could the toys' plastic pieces, such as these masks, have been separated and dumped into a landfill? Could they, given Fazbear Entertainment's reputation in FNaF 3, have been found by collectors, grown-up Freddy's fans, perhaps even stored somewhere clean and dry, just waiting for the patrons behind Fazbear's Fright to come and collect them for the horror attraction 30 years later? It's pure speculation, but we know that even decades later, there are Freddy's fans motivated to keep its legacy alive. Like everything else though, regardless of its origins, Mangle's mask, real or fake, burned with the building, concluding Mangle's journey once and for all. I know this track and trace has been pretty vague, but I'm afraid there is simply no conclusive proof of Mangle's narrative start to finish in a clean-cut story. I would rather share a variety of possibilities rather than settling on one line of thought that just has too many holes in the theory. With that said, thank you all so much for watching. If you have enjoyed, you can support me by subscribing, liking, commenting, and sharing this video with family, friends, and other FNAFers. Consider joining the Discord server too. I do exclusive polls and announcements over there in between video releases, so until I reach 500 subscribers and unlock the community tab, you'll have to get ping notifications over there to stay in the loop and get updates. Until next episode, subscribe and speculate. There's one iteration of Mangle we didn't touch on this video, and that was the one from UCN. Is the Mangle from UCN the real Mangle?